I did a 3-year-long commercial graduate scheme and I made a ton of videos praising schemes. However, for being paid well, fast-tracking your career and getting that big brand on your CV does have a flip side. So, why not to get a graduate scheme? Let's get into it. Number 1, see you later. The expectation for lots of schemes is that you're nationally mobile, and some of these places may not be the most exotic. So on my graduate scheme, I was based in Milton Keynes, Reading and Swindon. And I'm not going to give my opinion, but you can use your judgment whether you'd like to live here. 50+% of graduate programs are going to be based in London. However, London or elsewhere, you're not really going to have a choice where it is. So if you're applying for schemes, just make sure that the office location is somewhere you wouldn't mind working. And even as things get more virtual, it is still likely, because you need that contact time with your team, it's still likely you're going to have to move to the office, and you don't really have a choice where the office is located. If you work for Tesco, you could be based in Hertfordshire. That's where their head office is. If you work for Nestle, you'll be based in York. If you work for Aldi, you'll be on the outskirts of Birmingham. And if you're an area manager, you can be based in anywhere across the country. So if you're flexible like I was, just apply anywhere. However, if you do have a preference where you'd like to and where you'd not like to go, make sure to research where they're located before you apply. For me, I was okay for a short while living in these places, but now after my scheme, I have no desire ever to live in Swindon once again. Number 2 is bad rotations. The key element of a graduate scheme is the rotational element, moving around the business in different roles. However, what makes a graduate scheme so great can also land you in roles you may not like. So on my final placement, I was gunning for a sales role. I was speaking to the line managers, pretty much they had a seat warm for me in their team. However, when HR told me after my panel that I was going to work in supply chain and not sales, I will say I was very frustrated, and today I can still taste the salt. I can paint a really rosy picture that these placements that you may not prefer, they're the tough ones, they're the ones you're going to grow the most from. And maybe there is some truth in that in reality. However, my placements were a year long, and the minimum, they're probably going to be about 6 months. That's a long time to have to just lump a placement and see it through, and it can be pretty frustrating when you're going through it. In hindsight, you might look back and think that was exactly what I needed, but whilst you're going through it, it can be pretty painful. And you might not like it for very reasonable reasons. You might just not like the work, the function, the team, you might not click with your line manager. You, being the youngest and the least experienced, you might just be given work that no one else wants to do. I'm yet to meet a graduate who wasn't speaking honestly. They didn't have at least one bad thing to say about one of their rotations. So just be aware, the thing that makes graduate schemes so great is that you rotate, also can land you in roles you might not enjoy that much, and you're just going to have to see them through for the bigger picture and to see that scheme through. Number 3, slow moving cruise ships. So these big companies are big cruise ships, huge resource, sometimes great food, but to turn a cruise ship takes a lot of time and energy. A startup is like a speedboat, small, agile and nimble. However, they don't have the resource of a cruise ship. And graduate schemes are offered by big organizations because they can pay the best, they can attract the top talent like yourself, and they can offer a well thought out scheme. However, if you're looking for a startup like culture, high energy, high risk, high return, graduate schemes might not be for you. The strategy of a startup, high risk, high return, that could actually put a large organization out of business. They're looking to make small incremental improvements to their operations. They want to reduce their liability, make sure that operations are safe. They want to automate things. They want to introduce processes. A market can only be so big, and when a company and its competitors have been around for a long time, they're very established. So really they're only looking to move their market share, sometimes by single percentages every single year. Whereas a startup, they want to 10x every single year. They want to grow their operations and really scale up. So the work you're going to do in a startup, you're going to have to wear many hats as the company grows. However, in a large organization, you're going to feel like a tiny cog in this huge machine. I mentioned this in my last pros and cons video, so check that out if you want to hear more about graduate schemes. But you will be the youngest in your team by a mile. The people in your team will be much older. They'll have kids, dogs, houses. they're going to be at a different spot in life. You'll be friends with all of the graduate intake, but day to day, you're not going to be working with them. You're going to be working with these really experienced people. And I really like this. They've been in the business 20, 30 years. And naturally, if you compare yourself to them, they've got a few more promotions than you. They've got nice houses, nice cars. You know, naturally, you're going to lean in that direction. However, looking back, I probably would have liked to work at some point in a younger team who just really understood my ambition to get to their point and their aspirations, who were at the same point in life as me. And also, maybe they watched PewDiePie too. Work isn't just about the work. A big part of it is about the culture and the purpose and just the people and the feel of the office. This one isn't a massive negative. It's just something that I really was surprised by when I started my scheme. Besides the graduate intake, sometimes I was the youngest by 20 plus years. So it's just something I kind of wish I knew going into the scheme to just be aware of. Number 5. Not getting recognition. This can happen for many different reasons. For me, it was because I started my placements in September, but the year-end review process and the scoring starts in November. So I only had 2 months to really impress my new manager. On my second placement, I absolutely smashed it and I was a high performer and I got put forward for exceeds expectation. But then HR come back and say, well, he's only been here 2 months. He can't possibly be that high a performer. He needs a meets expectation. And then that's what I ended up getting, and it actually impacted my bonus, which was a little bit frustrating. Sometimes it can feel that you're working your absolute hardest, and despite the fact that you're the one who 100% cares the most about getting a good rating and doing good work and really developing, sometimes it can feel that you might not get the recognition. So just be aware that it's not going to be all pats on the backs, high fives and bonuses all around. When you're working your utmost hardest. I've spoken to so many graduates and so many of them, particularly on my scheme, were frustrated that they got constantly put forward to meets just because the alignment of when you start your graduate scheme, your next rotation, and then when you get your year-end review. But I've spoken to many other graduates in many different companies who experience very similar things but for many different reasons. So just be mindful. You could be working your hardest on a project you absolutely love and you still just get a meet and you get rated the same as everyone else on your team, even though you know you care way more. There is also a flip side. These big companies have great bonuses, and I have since had a lot of bonuses for good performance. It's just you will always remember the times when you worked so hard on a project for maybe a reason that you just didn't connect with your manager. You don't really get the recognition for it. I hope you enjoyed getting a little bit more insight into my experience on a graduate scheme. All these cons are from my own experience. If you disagree with any of these, please comment this below. And this video wasn't made to scare you and stop you applying for graduate schemes. The scale is definitely tipped in favor of grad programs. It's just to show there is another flip side to the coin that you've got to be aware of. If you enjoyed getting an insight, please smash like, subscribe for more of this content, and yeah, boom.